Hello everyone, my name is Noah Kaplan. I am born and raised here in Denver. I'm a proud graduate of DPS schools. My parents were public defenders growing up, and they instilled in me a really strong civic sense. We had great values in my home of civility, civic and social responsibility, and our responsibility to provide for the needs of our community. I used that upbringing as a bearing in my young adult life. And decided that I wanted to go and be a teacher. So I went and I got a teaching degree. I returned to my alma mater of East High School. Any angels in the room? Maybe a couple. Sorry, audience participation. And I went back to school and I returned to that campus that I had grown up on, and I got to direct a speech and debate program there for the last 7 years, which put me in touch with a very diverse group of over 200 students and their families, which really helped me learn about the challenges facing the Denver community and the challenges facing the educators who serve that community. So after 7 years as a teacher, I looked up to have been priced out of home ownership and basically out of the rental market as well. And I started to see how that impacted my colleagues and the families that we served. We saw families leaving from their freshman year to their senior year. I had students move from within a 5-minute drive to a 45-minute drive. That meant kids were falling asleep in my classroom. That meant teachers were quitting their jobs. We see decreased enrollment in DPS. So we see how all of these issues are tied together. I got a second job, like many teachers do, to try and make ends meet. And given that my training was in English, I took on a freelance journalist role with Denver Westward, covering City Hall, covering our mismanagement of the homelessness epidemic and criminal justice reform. And it gave me a great insight into how the city operates and the ways in which there's a disconnect between the rules that are written in City Hall and how those rules impact our community, our businesses, our homes, and our schools. I'm running to bring creativity, imagination, good faith deliberation, and better connections between service providers, constituents, agencies and departments inside the city government. Let's create a unified effort to address the issues facing our city. It's the only way they get done. So for the past couple of years, 2.5 years, I've worked with an outreach group that does outreach and resource connection to unhoused communities. I've worked in these encampments for the past 2.5 years. And I've witnessed a lot of sweeps over the course of that time. I believe that the urban camping ban enforcement of a camping ban is an important tool in keeping our communities safe. I think that the enforcement of our camping ban has failed in that it hasn't actually minimized the existence of camps in the city. And my observation of these sweeps, as I have seen them, we have DPD, and we have Dottie cleaning the street. And I think that we're missing a huge opportunity with our encampment decommissions. Where are resources? Where is case management? Where is the unified approach to ensuring that people have access to the resources that they need? The challenges facing people living on the street are diverse and varied and intersectional. We have addiction, we have mental health, we have being wrapped up in criminal justice issues that prevent you from getting housing or from finding jobs. We need to coordinate our approach to enforcement of our camping ban with better communication and better coordination between city services, between nonprofit services, between private recovery treatment, and our law enforcement. We're missing a huge opportunity to collect data during encampment sweeps. We're missing a huge opportunity to approach people in a way that opens them up to accepting resources. My experience has been that there is a great many people that we can help with the right approach, with the right tone, and with the right offerings of resources. So I would like to see a robust enforcement of the camping ban, but to see that enforcement paired with services that are evidence-based and supported by city leadership. This is a great question. I think this is what needs to be the conversation around homelessness. We need to be planning for long-term solutions. And I'm reminded of one of the most robust recovery treatment programs in the city, which I think is largely unknown by city leadership. And it's just somebody that I met in my work in encampments. The organization is called Ananeo, and it builds cultures around recovery. So this is dealing with the problems of incompetency in jail. So one of the big challenges that we have is people get arrested for survival crimes or crimes related to homelessness. They're deemed incompetent or unable to stand trial, and then they are sent to jail because they can't actually see their case through. What happens then is that they're supposed to go to a hospital to get support to regain competency, but we don't have room in our hospital. So what happens is they end up back on the street. Ananeo is an organization that's partnered with the city and with jails to give outpatient treatment that allows individuals to participate in sober living. They build a community of support. They offer peer mentorship, job opportunities. They connect individuals with jobs that they're capable of doing. And over time, they build a culture around recovery, mobility, and productivity. And this organization is also then purchasing apartments in and around the city, and they then offer those apartments as leasable properties to the people who complete their program. So you're building a culture of individuals who are able to work their way up and through treatment and into a productive state and contribution to our community. If we fail to do that and we just put people in housing, my ride-alongs with DPD, my ride-alongs with paramedics, and my ride-alongs with fire have revealed that many of the places we are putting people in with housing vouchers and no service and no culture of recovery end up being really scary, suffering places, and is a huge expense on the city. So we need to build cultures of recovery. Programs don't help people, relationships do. We need city leadership that is forward-facing, accessible, and interested enough in this subject to identify strong programs, to champion those programs, and to make sure they receive city support. And we can address the extended problems around homelessness that way. Some great ideas from my colleagues here, and I want to echo the importance of affordable housing and the city's need to invest in that type of initiative. But I do think that we have some concerns around the way we decide to treat individuals who are unhoused, and we have a quality control problem. We've invested hundreds of millions of dollars to try and address this problem, and it's only gotten worse. I think what we need is a city council that is interested in learning as much as possible about the resources provided our community by nonprofit service providers, by for-profit service providers, and by city services. I think with a better understanding of the needs of our community, the needs of the people living on the street, we can identify the right kinds of services that can provide the help that individuals living on the street actually need. I would love to see, what I'd love to do is, if elected to office, I would be interested in staffing a social worker to be a community liaison, specifically intent on understanding all of the services offered to our unhoused community in our district, and building strong relationships and understanding what need is this particular service serving and how can we create a continuity of care. Because we cannot continue to offer a housing voucher for someone to go to East Colfax and then a job placement up on Santa Fe and then a mental health service downtown. The needs of our community are complex, and that runaround doesn't help anybody. So we can fund it as much as we want, but it will not solve our problems. We need a coordinated effort, and we need to identify strong service providers and leverage programs and support for those particular services that we know are offering that kind of support that can actually get people stable, productive, and back in a sustainable place. Because I have a little bit of time, I want to reiterate that my experience living or working with unhoused people, I have met people who were given housing and ended up back on the street. I have met people who had housing, but they kept a tent on the street, because that's where their community is. So the idea that we do not, that housing solves this problem for us, my ride-alongs with fire and paramedics shows it moves suffering indoors. And what we need to do is make sure we're providing what people need and building communities of recovery.
All
So I just want to start with a story that was really impactful to me. I tutored a young man on East Colfax. I tutored him for a few years, and I saw him testify at a council meeting recently to report to council that his mother had been shot in a drive-by. And it took DPD 45 minutes to get there. A representative from the police department said, you know, our officer deficit is impacting our response times in high-risk communities. So I think it's important that we acknowledge how essential that 911 number is, and that when you need a police officer, somebody you trust should be there to show up. Somebody who's well-trained, somebody who ideally has touch points inside of our community, somebody who is partnered with alternative response teams when applicable. So I will echo the things that my colleagues have said up here. I'm interested in co-response, I'm interested in alternative response, but I'm really interested in building stronger connections between law enforcement and our community. I think the narrative we have about law enforcement doesn't acknowledge the complexity of that job. I think that City Council can take a stronger role in telling that story and highlighting the complex service that law enforcement offers so many people each and every day. I did a ride-along with Precinct 6 a few months ago at this point, and was very impressed by the compassionate and patient service that that officer gave to citizens of our city all day long. And I want to see cadet programs in schools become more robust. Let's bring in our young people. Let's build connections between young people and the officers who serve our community. And let's allow those young people to find purpose and passion in public service, just like Commander Sanchez, who directs, you know, is the Chief of Patrol. Chief Sanchez is the Chief of Patrol for EPD, who was a Lincoln High School graduate. I want more people from our community policing our community, and that way we can build trust and improve our public safety outcomes. More investment in law enforcement. Let's make sure we have the best police officers in this city and that they know it. I've lived adjacent to downtown most of my life. I had my first date at the United Artists at movie theater on 16th Street Mall. And it's really important to me that that space becomes a space where families are welcome to return to the city. I think that addressing our public safety concerns, putting a city council office on 16th Street Mall with social worker outreach and connective services to address our homelessness crisis, I think is key. We have to solve that problem. So bringing people downtown, I think DDP's Pop-Up Denver, which is giving opportunity to young and diverse entrepreneurs to come and get a toehold on 16th Street Mall. They don't come to 16th Street Mall for the McDonald's or the Subway. Let's give them something more interesting. Let's give them something that represents our character. Let's invite a renaissance to our downtown area. I think in that way we can champion and bring in conventions and festivals and all kinds of things, but we need to be acknowledging the ecosystem, the environment, and we need to be able to facilitate the kind of experiences that we all live in Denver for, right? This is all about making memories with one another. And I think with that tone and tenor and that approach, what kinds of memories are we providing our families and our visitors? I think we can have a really exciting future in this city. Multimodal transit. I mean, I'm going to echo Margie here. We got to find ways that people can get downtown without driving a vehicle. I want to see shared streets. I want to see e-bikes and discounted travel and connecting our rail system with our bus rapid transit. I want to see all of these things work together. And I want to see a city council person who will champion more conventions to come here. I want a national speech and debate tournament to take place at our convention center. I think that would be a wonderful thing to offer our city and to build on that tax revenue and allow us to address these other concerns that that tax revenue allows us to.
Thank you. Shannon?
So
So there's a lot of great ideas being talked about up here, and I think your job is to figure out who do you think is most likely to get these things done. And I want to tell the right story about our district and our city. I'm interested in building relationships from the unhoused person that has a tent set up outside my apartment, to the law enforcement officer who works precinct 6 off Colfax, to the business owner, to the social worker, to the developer who's going to help us solve our housing crisis. I think that we can tell a really beautiful story, and I think we need better storytelling and stronger leadership in council to get that stuff done. I have deep roots in this city. I love the people who live here, and I really want to see a brighter future. I think that we are on the cusp of a great renaissance in Denver. We just need somebody to tell the story, and I'm interested in being that person.